All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out on this finally crisp fall afternoon. I'm Dr. Joshua Weaver. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of the school district, and excited that you've all joined us for our Imagine If sessions, our first one. Dr. Raylan Howard, our high school principal, and Mr. Brendan Smith, a soon-to-be doctor, I believe, will also be joining us for the presentation. So, first of all, I want to say thank you all for being here. I didn't recognize everybody's time as valuable. We had no idea whether to expect 20 people, 5 people, 200 people. So I'm very happy with this turnout, especially for a 3:30 session in the afternoon. Curious to see how many we end up with this evening as well. I know Dr. Finch and Dr. Nichols would love to have been here, but they're both at PSBA, and I did not check their schedule before we scheduled this and began to advertise it. So they're both out there learning and growing, and would like to have been here today, but obviously couldn't because of that commitment. So today's session of Imagine If, and sort of subtitled there, Let's Rethink High School Experience, is really looking at how a student navigates 9th through 12th grade. So this is my third year here in the role of assistant superintendent. I've been principal in some other districts. And as soon as I arrived, I heard people kind of get your ear. And being new, they like to kind of plug the things that, they like to say hi and welcome you. And then they like to plug the things that they don't think are going well in a school district. It doesn't matter whether you're teaching in a district or a principal in a district or new as the assistant superintendent. That's just kind of the nature of people. And one of the things that I heard as soon as I arrived is when students get to our high school, there's not enough support and there's no time for students to get help. In our current structure, and we'll elaborate on that more as we go through, students have the opportunities for assistance, whether you're a high-flying student, a middle-of-the-road student, or a student who struggles with learning, before school and after school, and occasionally during the day, if it happens to coincide with a time that your teacher has off. But there's no structure in time for students to really get the help that I believe they still need in 9th grade. Some of you, I know there's some educators in here. Who are high school parents? Who are also middle school parents? So we invited both. Okay, awesome. So this affects both, and maybe some students that are coming up. But I feel like, and it's I think across the board, I don't think it's unique to Grove City. Elementary, you have a ton of support, right? And there are a lot of resources, and there's a lot of time built in the day, and there's not the bell-to-bell structure where a student has to move every time a bell rings, and there's a great deal of support at elementary. And when you get to the middle school, it shifts a little bit, and it should. The support doesn't. You don't need as much for a kindergartner, or as much for an 8th grader as you do for a kindergartner, and that's natural. But at our middle school, we currently have a structure in place that there's a common time during the day. All resources are available, and students have means to get assistance that they need. Again, whether they're a student who's high-flying and is doing an independent study in some music theorist, perhaps, or it's a learner who struggles with reading. All ends of the spectrum have time for that. But then when they arrive at the high school, we go through a day that's structured as 8 periods, and that the supports tend to go away. And that's not unique to Grove City. I believe that occurs in most places. But again, that is something that as soon as I arrived, people began to share with me. Josh, there's just no time. There's no time. I have a struggling learner. Where did they get time? Or I have this high flyer, and when I first started here, we really didn't have much in the way of gifted support at high school. And we've made some changes to that program. So we have support for that program. But again, we don't have a real great structure in terms of time for students to access that. So this all started around a few goals. How do we provide students with more time in the day that's structured for them to get help, again, on either end of the spectrum, or the middle-of-the-road student? How do we get some more time for collaboration, not only for our staff, but for students with staff, students with students? And how can we rethink that experience so that all students who come through these doors, 9 through 12, just have a better overall experience? And that's when we started looking at some scheduling. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Howard, and she's going to talk a little bit about some of the structure that we currently have. And I'm sorry that this isn't super clear. I don't think we expect it to be quite as light, but she will work through this. And for all of you who have signed up, you'll be getting a survey. I also sent you a copy of this presentation as well, so you have this tomorrow.
It's usually cloudy in western Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So I think, I have some students in here, but the one thing that I hear from students at the high school that I talk to is there's a huge jump when they come into 9th grade from what they've done in the middle school. And when they come in here, the day is just so hurried. I feel rushed throughout the day. So most students start arriving here at the high school probably between 7:40, 7:45, and they all come into these 2 rooms. And they're really not leaving these 2 rooms because their teachers, we have meetings every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 7:30 to 8. So if most students would want to access a teacher, they can't even do that. So at 7:55, the bell rings. The first period of the day starts at 8:04, and from there, they go through 8 periods of the day, 3 minutes of transition. Most students, not all students, most students have a study hall on their schedule, which is great. It gives them that block of time, but their teachers are not free during that time. And we have a large group of kids sitting in the cafeteria here for study hall, and I have to tell you, probably 20% use it the way that they should because they really can't get to what they need during that time. So then everybody has a 30-minute lunch, and they just shuffle through the day. And it really is. It's just a hurried day. I feel like everybody feels rushed through the day. If a student wants to stop and ask a teacher a question, if they want them to write a recommendation letter for college, if they're going to be out, I just talked to a little girl that was going to be out last week. One was for a gifted field trip, and one was for an athletic event. They said, but I have to see my teachers, but I only have 5 minutes to go, but I want to make all my work turned in. There really just isn't the time in the day to do that. So...
Welcome. I'm Brendan Smith. This does a little reintroduction there. It is the next slide really just shows our 8-period day, 8 periods a day bell schedule, 42 minutes. You can see we have a half an hour lunch, and I want to kind of plant a seed right now. There's a 90-minute block right in the middle of the day, which we rotate 3 lunches through. So the kids have a 30-minute lunch, and they have a 1-hour class. Our 5th period is approximately 60 minutes. All the other classes are 42 minutes. And if you have B lunch, your day's broken up. So your 5th period, you go for a half an hour, you eat lunch, and then you also do the second part after you have lunch. So the continuity is broken there a little bit. Dr. Howard mentioned the transition time. We kind of add those all up. There's about 21 minutes of time throughout the day the kids are passing through the halls. If you don't look at 20 minutes, but if we can recapture even 20 minutes or even half of that, that could be significant for a lot of kids. This is what we would use, probably 90% of the time. But if we wanted to have an assembly or anything that might interrupt our day, a speaker to come in, we would have to reduce the time in these classes to afford us the time to have a 40-minute assembly, an hour assembly, things of that nature. One other thing I want to point out to you, for our Career Center students, they eat the first lunch that goes from 11:10 to 11:40. They eat, they board the bus. They have an additional roughly 40 minutes of transitional time a day. So that's rather significant. That's a whole class period that they're sitting on a bus to and from the Career Center. That was something that we might be able to recapture for those kids as well, because they have a very tight schedule, as do a lot of students, but a really tight schedule because they're trying to get a lot of all their core subjects in, those first 4 periods, eat lunch, run to and from the Career Center. So that is kind of in a nutshell of our 8-period day, what that looks like, and some areas in there that we might be able to potentially recapture for kids.
So when we started talking about this, we started talking about the concerns we have with our schedule. And they're sort of maybe going to go back to some of the items that Dr. Weaver said. The first thing is that we had no time for intervention, no time to help kids that were struggling. And what happens if kids come in their 9th grade year and they start struggling and I lose them, I never get them back. And I need time to help those kids that need it. And the problem is a lot of kids, they need to take the bus to or from school, or we have such a large, and I'm thankful for this, we probably have 85% of our kids are either in a sport or an extracurricular activity, whether it be the marching band, the play, so they can't really stay after either. So there's not a time. Our teachers are willing to come, but the kids usually can't get here that need help. There's also not a lot of time for enrichment. I know that what we've done with Gifted in the last 2 years has been a huge jump I think it's great for our gifted students, but it's still hard for Mrs. Fry to pull those students at a common time that they all can get together and prepare for whatever they may be doing, whether it's going to academic games or Model UN. It's just hard to get all the kids at one time. So that was another. So it's kids at both ends of the spectrum academically that we need to get time for. Teacher collaboration to meet student needs. I mean, all research tells us the more time that teachers have to collaborate, to plan and prepare lessons that are going to meet the needs of the students, it's going to help. So teachers would be able to do that. It would also be a good time for students to touch base with their teachers, to find time for that. Whether you were out for a sport, whether you missed a day of school, whether you're struggling, it could be anything, but we always have kids that need to see their teachers, and there's just no time to do that. Right now, they attend 8 classes daily, and there's just such a rapid pace to that day. So, you know, even if they miss, there's just not time to do any of those things. And then the career and the Mercer County Career Center students, like Mr. Smith said, they're only here for 4 periods of the day. They eat lunch, and they get on a bus, and we don't see them again until they get back here at the end of the day. So with all of those things said, those are things we're trying to fix. We want kids to feel like they're supported here. We want kids to feel like there's time for them to do extra and above things if they want to do that.
So here's where it gets a little bit more fun. This is the imagine if portion of the presentation. So we've identified problems that I believe exist and not unique to Grove City. I think those problems exist in a lot of high schools, especially when you have a structure like we've shared and we've talked about. And it hits all students. It hits 9th graders, it hits seniors, it hits high-flying students, it hits your Miller Road students, it hits your Career Center students, it hits your struggling learners. There's no one immune to some of the issues that we've identified, and those issues are no secret. So in an effort, in an attempt to remedy some of those, last year we began looking at some other models in some other school districts. And it looks at altering your daily schedule in order to better meet needs of students. So can you imagine if students only took 4 classes each day, but still took 8 classes throughout the school year? So instead of the rapid pace, every 40, 42 minutes, the bell rang and you got up and you ran to the next class and you set up and there's a small transition period. And I was just in classrooms today. You watch it. You watch students come in, and we have great students here. We have great staff. So when they arrive, they all walk in, and it takes a few minutes just to get settled in. It takes a few minutes for the Google Doc to deploy at a time specific to the students. They log in, and they begin working. But there's some time spent there. And in the traditional 8-period day that we have, around 40 minutes, you rapidly work through those things. So you get 30-some minutes worth of work, and then you have some kind of closure, possibly a little collaboration. You close the lesson, bell rings, and you go to the next one. So you can imagine if students only took 4 classes every day, they still took 8 classes at a time and took 8 classes for the entire school year. Can you imagine if the classes lasted around 80 minutes? And I know for some, thinking of sitting and listening to the same teacher for 80 minutes may be unbearable. I'm just going to be honest, right? And we all, like, I at least laugh a little bit, like we've all had those teachers, right? There are teachers you could have spent from 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 in the afternoon with, and they would have engaged you nonstop, and it would have been wonderful. There are some, after 20 minutes in, you think, please, like, let the fire alarm go off. Like, I hope we go on and do a lockdown and somebody pulls me out. Like, something to break it, right? So I get that fear of what if it lasted 80 minutes. But one of the pieces we're looking at and investing quite a bit of time, effort, and energy in this school year is some professional development for our staff. Getting our staff together to collaborate. Most of our meeting time at the high school is spent around, okay, what does a lesson look like if it's 80 minutes? Because I'll be honest, the most epic fail would be for somebody to take Monday's 42-minute lesson and Tuesday's 42-minute lesson and just slide them together and just do them back to back. That would be a total fail. I don't believe any of our staff believes that's the way this should be handled. I think when you look at 80 minutes of class time, you arrive, you transition to that class, you have a nice long period of time to maybe do a little bit of lecture and some discussion. Then maybe students go and they do some independent work, while maybe this group of students right here needs a little extra help. So they're going to come up and work with me while students work independently. In 80 minutes time, I have time now to get back up and continue that discussion lecture, bring everybody back together. At the end of the period, with maybe 15 minutes left, this group's working together. I want to individualize and work with some of you, so I spend 10 minutes with you, And then I still have time for closure. And now I've well planned my 80 minutes. It's engaging, it's differentiated, and it's not monotonous. It's not 80 minutes of me just talking to you. Imagine if all resources were available during a 90-minute period every day. Every student, every staff member, every school counselor did not have a class scheduled for 90 minutes in the day. Now, contractually speaking, and with all due respect to a professional, they deserve their 30-minute lunch. So take out their 30-minute lunch and we schedule those strategically. They still have 60 minutes to work with students, whether that be in a club or activity, whether that be on helping with some math homework, maybe an independent project, maybe something in robotics, maybe something in our gifted program, perhaps maybe we'll put out some ping pong tables, because after 2 classes in the morning, after I eat lunch, I just need a little bit of a break. I'm going to go play ping pong for 15 minutes with my buddies. And that's okay too. We want students to have a little more flexibility, and we've kind of coined some of that like a lunch and learn time. So during that lunch period, where we have a little more flexibility in this building, instead of I have to arrive for the first lunch and I have to eat in that 30 minutes, maybe for the first part, if I'm a student, I need to go access Mr. Ranker, because we're going to have a big discussion in AP that day, and I know he's available during that time, so I'm going to go work with him. I want to be prepared for that lecture and that discussion. Then I'm going to come down here and get lunch, but it's too loud in the cafeteria because I want to make sure I'm ready for that lecture. So I take my tray and I walk somewhere down the hall. We're looking at maybe the common area, maybe some areas around the library, and I eat my sandwich down there so that I can take notes and prepare. And then the last 15 minutes, because it doesn't really take me like 30 minutes to eat my lunch, last 15 or 20 minutes, I go down to the gym and I talk with one of my teachers who's also a coach of mine and a mentor of mine. Now, I've used that time very wisely in the middle of the day, and I feel refreshed, I feel prepared for Mr. Ranker's lecture, and I ate my lunch, all in that block of time. I think the resources and the opportunities during that block of time are limitless. I really think the sky is the limit on what we could do with time like that that's very intentionally scheduled in every single day of our school year. So that's a little bit more about Lunch and Learn. And then the Career and Technology Center student experience would also be redesigned. As we look at this, there's a lot of transition time for a Career Center student. They arrive, they get on the bus or they go to class, depending. They then come back, they eat a little lunch, and they have a little bit of time in the afternoon. Our Career Center students have 0 time to work with their teachers at the homeschool unless they come in early or they stay late. And we've already identified that's a problem. That's a problem if you're a high-flying kid or you're a struggling learner or you're a middle-of-the-road kid. That's hard to have somebody get you here early, pick you up late, and it doesn't conflict with either a work schedule, a sport, or maybe the musical. So we want to redesign that experience as well. And we've looked at how do we create a schedule where a student spends an entire day at a Career Center and they spend an entire day at their home school. They finally have that 90 minutes of time to get help from teachers that they need to see. They have some continuity to their day. Furthermore, I'm a senior, I'm in an HVAC program up there, and I have a whole day at my Career Center. Now somebody who wants to look for an internship with me or a co-op, I all of a sudden become a full-time employee every other day of the week. I'm not this like 2-hour part-time employee, every morning or every afternoon. I now have opportunities to truly experience the work field because that's what I'm passionate about going into. So if you could just imagine some of those things before we break up into groups and what that could really look like for students at our high school. Students at all ages, all learning levels, all experiences, all likes, all interests. I really think we could revolutionize the experience of students here at Grove City Area High School.
So now we're going to ask all of you to do something for us, and you're going to work maybe with the people at your table. If you're sitting sort of, the two of you want to join somebody, you can do that. We put some paper on the middle of the table. We're going to give everybody an envelope. In that envelope are 4 questions, and if you guys would sort of talk at your table and jot some of what you're saying onto this big paper, we would like to keep the papers when we're done so we have your thoughts and feelings, but we're also going to ask you to share out a little bit of the things that you put down. We'll take about 20 minutes. There's 4 questions. You can decide. Just make sure you get through all of them. So you need somebody to write the stuff down, and you're going to need somebody to share out. So.
Yeah, one of the biggest things was kids' attention spans. Can I hold someone's attention for 84 minutes? And so yeah, they thought out certain classes, as well as maturity concerns. Yeah, if you have a class full of juniors and seniors, it's more feasible. But if you've got sophomores and freshmen, what does that look like for those teachers? Is that going to be harder on them or harder on the kids? And then we listed some specific ones. Apparently math was highly frowned upon, so we tried to add some extras there. But what is a math lesson going to look like? Like you said, what does geometry look like for 84 minutes? So legitimate concerns. However, I know that our administration has been working on the training aspects, and I look forward to those in-services because I know that they're going to take care of us. They always have. They will continue to do so. But those are just some things, obviously, parents were mentioning. There were some concerns about continuity. You're not seeing them every day, so do you have to review more because you're not seeing them? Legitimate concern. Let's see here. Big one was kids missing school. Along with that, or even if they just miss in general, they were sick or something like that. If you're missing one day, it's kind of like you're missing two. So what do we do with those kids? Again, great concern. I think that's a great way where we can utilize the lunch and learn time, but a valid concern. Getting beyond that, why are we pumped? Teacher help. I know a lot of parents are like, I would love for my kid to be able to get more help. So we're really excited about that. Music lessons, for sure. College structure, kind of like what you guys said, it's kind of nice to be able to transition our kids who are going to higher education. We're going to give you a college feel before college. That's fantastic. We highlighted a longer focus on material. If I'm learning something, yes, if we only have 20 minutes, that's good. But if I can really focus on something for 40 minutes and really be able to talk about it and get into a good discussion, we were excited about that, as well as teacher collaboration. Being a teacher here, I know I'm excited to sit down with some of my colleagues, maybe in a different department, and say, hey, what can we do together to meet the needs of more of our kids? Benefits, we just highlighted extra help, time with teachers. We love the fact that there was less wasted transitional time. I don't have to start up the day 8 different times. I only have to do it 4 different times. So that's absolutely fantastic. Some extras that we like to see, some coding. Some parents mentioned, I'd love to see coding here, a little bit more done with that. I absolutely love this one. It was recommended. What if we did something like yoga? Our kids, there's so many reports that say our kids are the most stressed out generation ever. What if our kids could go down and, maybe it's only for 40 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, but be able to relax their, mind and body would be absolutely amazing. And a big one was dual credit. Can we bring that back? If my kids go into college, I'd like to get them credit in both places. So that's what we had. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So I think we'll start with the question about services.
Out of all those people who frequently talk in front of groups, how did you get nominated as a speaker?
Let me present. So we wanted to start with this because we thought the services and courses and so forth, the biggest thing is that we want to address the whole child. And what we're doing at Hillview, because I teach at Hillview, is starting to filter up. It's really exciting for me to see that because we are addressing the whole child. We are addressing what we call the 4 C's of 21st century learning, which is communication, collaboration, critical thinking, collaboration, I said that, communication, critical thinking, and thank you, creativity. So that doesn't necessarily happen when you just open a textbook and answer the questions at the end of the chapter. So I'm excited, I personally am excited as a parent and as an educator about the benefits, but back to this one. So we said the services, courses, support, we like the foreign language. We happen to have a Spanish teacher here, so she promoted that, but also as parents who want our kids to explore something other than Spanish or French, having that opportunity to maybe study German or another language. We talked a lot about the career readiness aspect of having that lunch and learn time, inviting career people in. Mr. Hake mentioned how maybe having military people can come in and visit during that time, which is that college and career readiness aspect. We talked a lot about the emotional health services. how there's a big issue with our kids today, especially in the high school, and having the opportunity during that time to get them the help that they may need. And we also mentioned online classes during that time. My daughter wants to study photography, so that would be a neat opportunity for her to take an online class. Benefits, we said the biggest benefit would be that choice. We, as an adult, have lots of choices in our days, but our students have very few choices. And so giving them that choice of what they're going to do with that small chunk of time would be huge for them. And the educational ease in is deep learning or project-based learning. And that is an exciting thing, back to that 4 C's that we're doing at Hillview. We're not just giving them a test, but they're doing performance tasks. And they're showing their learning in amazing new ways. And there's a lot of professional development will have to happen, as you already started with that. So we mentioned that, but relevant to their world today. How can their learning be relevant to them today in their world? So we talked to them about peer tutoring. This is a great transition to college. It will help with college prep. We're excited about the choice again, that they can explore their interests. Some of the concerns would be the athletes leaving at the end of the day. They wouldn't be able to come back the next day and touch base with that teacher because they wouldn't have that class for 2 days and they'd miss a large chunk of that time. Logistically, keeping track of how many kids, 600 kids, and where they are and what they're doing, and the logistics behind that. If they are dual enrolled with college, like how is that going to work? And then of course the pedagogy, like training your teachers. You can't have a geometry lecture for 80 minutes because your kids would be off and not be able to focus. Did I miss anything? So those are our thoughts.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, so notable, obviously, the first 2 benefits. We really thought the idea of having some kinetic space, time for kids to move in the middle of the day, whether it was yoga or just gym time, that might be really good for this age group. We wanted to ask the question and consider, would this even open up the possibility of a later start so that high schoolers may get a little more sleep? We're wondering and hoping that it'd be more time to maybe have students that have a chance to start homework in class and see what kind of help they might need on homework. The other side of that is our concern that teachers are going to be tempted just to take 2 lesson plans and cram them into each day, which goes to the training and support issues that other people have mentioned. Also, we love the idea that our kids might be able to explore and put more time into things that they're really interested in. Other things that we're excited about, really, again, kind of restated stuff from the blue sheet in terms of our hope for the kids to be able to maybe have a more customized focus here and there, and that might lead to programs and things we haven't seen yet, like foreign language, math lab, study sessions. One thing that came up on for a couple of us is our students have gone to RILA, which is the Rotary Youth Leadership, and have spent some time with kids from other schools and have come away from that really aware that our high school doesn't have nearly as many clubs and extracurricular opportunities that a lot of our peers do. And then concerns. So first off, I think we really are worried about how are we going to assess this? Like if we, in 5 years from now, what sort of instruments would be in place to really see if this has improved our school? Many of us moved here a decade and a half ago, and we really feel like that the school has not flourished as it once did, and we'd like to see it become another strong place. And that's good for our property values. It's good for the quality of life in the town. We're also, right away, we were wondering about kids in the middle. So we're thinking about enrichment kids. We're thinking about kids who are maybe really need extra help and attention, but in the meantime, we worried about the idea of this apathetic kid who's doing fine, but is he or she really going to have the motivation or the focus to figure out how to structure lunch and learn, or to self-advocate for lunch and learn if somebody's not advocating for them on the low end, or they're already advocating for themselves on the high end. Classroom management, of course, and just making sure the teachers feel supported and well-trained. And it seemed to us too, the last thing is just, it seems to me that staffing capacity would be really stretched by this. This seems like it would require a lot more man hours by.
To maybe have some extracurricular things to get involved in that they don't have the time for now, and the more college-like atmosphere of the longer classes, not every single day, but kind of getting them geared toward that. We also had a lot of, I wouldn't say concerns, more questions that we feel that we need to talk more about. One of my concerns is that lunchtime seems awesome. My concern is probably, especially with those kids in the middle that aren't going to use it productively, that are just going to come in here and run free for all. So how do we manage getting the kids where they need to go to get the help that they need to get if they're not self-motivated? The teacher ratio, teacher-to-student ratio, and the stretching to teachers, I don't know if it was mentioned what happens to the teacher planning period, because obviously they're not planning at lunch, because they could have students coming to them every which way. So does that mean that they only have a planning period every other day? What happens to their time that they need to get prepared for the students? At first we were thinking that it would be good for the kids that take college classes because they would not miss as much, but in reality they actually would still have to miss 2 classes because they would have to miss the A day and the B day, as those would alternate, and they wouldn't always necessarily be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday coordinating with the college. Middle school students coming up here to take high school classes, if they're coming here, how is that going to affect them? Because they're not going to be on the same schedule. So if they're only coming every A day, what are they doing back there on their B day? And if they're coming for a full 80 minutes, how is that affecting how many classes they're missing over there? I know that for our son, we were talking about this, he's a senior and it won't affect him, but I think there's been some talk in the classroom about how it will affect the teachers that have science classes for labs, because again, there was some talk, I think, before we came about possibly doing those labs during that lunch period occasionally, but if they're doing the labs during the classroom period, their instruction time is being taken away, because now they have full instruction time and full lab time that are separated from each other. We talked about the domino effect of, like, Mr. Habarka doing the band. How is his schedule here going to affect, because he still has to go to the middle school and the elementary school, so coordinating all of those schedules together. Keeping track of the A-B schedule. I mean, they are young adults, but some of them still have some issues with organization, and you get a school day that's canceled, and then does that mean that we have the A that we were supposed to have yesterday, or is it the B that we're supposed to have today? You know, getting through all of those little hurdles. We thought that it could be more beneficial to the kids that need support because of the lunchtime, more time for math labs. It's a concern, more time to be able to go to your locker or bathroom because the transitions are so quick now, kids feel rushed. I think you said you don't even use your locker, and I think my kids go once a day maybe to their locker because they happen to be close to their locker at one point in the day, but other than that they carry their stuff around. Some of the things that we would like to see are more science electives, more AP classes, and more service learning projects in the schools.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Why this idea? What other models and ideas were looked at and considered? Are there any ways we could address some of these issues within the current model, or with just altering the current model as needed? Yeah, we just have a lot of questions.
No, go through.
Will the schedule allow for honors liberal arts classes such as history, English, languages. How does this increase the academic rigor / quantity of academic information versus losing academic knowledge on days off, since you won't be going to class every day? I'm going to keep this one? Oh, yeah. I know that there was talk about during the lunchtime, perhaps that's a time for college classes. However, that's not when many Grove City College classes are offered during that lunch period.
What time period is lunch? Do you have that kind of?
I don't know what time's in the schedule for that.
We've thought about, just, I don't want to answer questions like kids.
No, I'm just listing what we.
If kids want to take college classes, we still will accommodate their schedules if they're able to do that.
Right, right,
It doesn't have to be just straight up time.
right.
Yeah, it could be any.
I'm breaking my own.
Yes.
You guys are okay.
Just with some more questions about the lunch and learn time, exactly where that time will be taken from. While we appreciate the idea of giving them more freedom and responsibility, there's concerns about too much unstructured free time. I'm almost done. Will there be more homework since they'll see their teachers less frequently? And how does this affect teacher assignments? And what have I missed? Just that? And how does it affect classes such as band, choir, 3D art, things like that? Will there need to be more teachers, particularly like for teachers like Mr. Harbarka, who is already at every school in the district? How's this going to work with schedules like that? Did I get them all? Oh, Mindy.
That was the doubling up. We talked to her.
Oh, okay.
I just wrote that down when we were talking.
And we have more opportunities to take online classes during that period. That
The lunch and learn.
the lunch and learn that the district kind of supports and pays for and things like that, that would give more opportunities.
I'll just put a big question mark at the top of ours.
Works.
I know it's the question.
That works, because we're great.
We go to the back table.
Okay. Why this idea? What other models and ideas were looked at and considered? Are there any ways we could address some of these issues within the current model, or with just altering the current model as needed? Yeah, we just have a lot of questions.
No, go through.
Will the schedule allow for honors liberal arts classes such as history, English, languages? How does this increase the academic rigor / quantity of academic information versus losing academic knowledge on days off, since you won't be going to class every day? I'm going to keep this one? Oh, yeah. I know that there was talk about during the lunchtime, perhaps that's a time for college classes. However, that's not when many Grove City College classes are offered during that lunch period.
What time period is lunch? Do you have that kind of?
I don't know what time's in the schedule for that.
We've thought about, just, I don't want to answer questions like kids.
No, I'm just listing what we.
If kids want to take college classes, we still will accommodate their schedules if they're able to do that.
Right, right,
It doesn't have to be just straight up time.
right.
Yeah, it could be any.
I'm breaking my own.
Yes.
You guys are okay.
Just with some more questions about the lunch and learn time, exactly where that time will be taken from. While we appreciate the idea of giving them more freedom and responsibility, there's concerns about too much unstructured free time. I'm almost done. Will there be more homework since they'll see their teachers less frequently? And how does this affect teacher assignments? And what have I missed? Just that? And how does it affect classes such as band, choir, 3D art, things like that. Will there need to be more teachers, particularly like for teachers like Mr. Harbarka, who is already at every school in the district? How's this going to work with schedules like that? Did I get them all? Oh, Mindy.
That was the doubling up, we talked to her.
Oh, okay.
I just wrote that down when we were talking.
And we have more opportunities to take online classes during that period.
The lunch and learn.
The lunch and learn that the district kind of supports and pays for and things like that, that would give more opportunities.
I'll just put a big question mark at the top of ours.
That works.
I know it's the question.
That works, as we're great.
We go to the back table.
benefits to this idea. Because it does give that opportunity, what that gentleman was talking about with how teachers teach. You know, this gives an opportunity, if done properly, for teachers to be able to really go more in depth with students. They get an opportunity to have deeper understanding of the content that they're working on. And but the one concern we did have was that there would have to be an awful lot of support from the administrative level and a lot of ongoing professional development for the teachers, because this is it's a shift. There would be a real cultural shift going on in this school, and that's going to take time. So one of the things we had talked about was, like, we talked about all the questions, but we also were talking about kind of the nuts and bolts of implementation. If you were to implement this, it might make sense to implement it like with 9th grade as like the pilot group, and then they're the group that moves up through, you know, and then the next 9th grade they have it, then 10th grade has it. It might be an idea. But we also, about the student partnership, we also said that we would hope that the students, because these are high school students, they know what they like, they know what they would have a lot of input into this process as well. Even the kids, like the seniors this year, who are never going to see this, but they still know what their experience has been like here and what the pros and cons have been, and they should have a voice that should enable you to, you know, plan accordingly based on some of the student feedback. So we just hope that they would be an important part of this as well, not just having this thrust on them and said, this is how we're doing it, and toe the line, and that's that. Because, you know, there needs to be a mutual respect, you know, between the adults and the kids. We thought that some of the benefits, we liked the idea of them having more access to teachers. I mean, from a personal level, I know one of my sons, it's been very frustrating for him when he's needed help with something and he cannot access the teacher. And that's happened multiple times with both of my boys. And we thought too, like with students with more time to get in depth into things, to access different learning modalities, would be very beneficial for a lot of students, because there could be that direct instruction time, there could be that hands-on kinesthetic learning going on, there could be some independent, small group. There are just a lot of options. It's just making sure that the teachers have all the resources and the knowledge that they need to be able to do it well with this level, at the high school level. The willingness, yeah, we talked about that too. Because if you don't have that, it's going to be hard to be successful. Yeah. But overall, I mean, we liked it. We also were wondering if they would be able to work into this kind of the reinvigoration of clubs, because this is something that used to be very vibrant here and it is no longer, but the middle school has like an amazing clubs program. You know, with this offer, we made a list of potential clubs that could be offered, and things like talking about getting back to the basics. I mean, we were talking about more opportunities for things like cooking club, sewing club, archery, technology, photography, martial arts. We talked about, like with foreign languages, you know, maybe opportunities for a little travel and things like that. So I mean, we all felt like there were a lot of possibilities with this, but a lot of logistical and cultural concerns about making it quality, making sure we're still getting kids ready for wherever they want to go after high school. And, oh yeah, last one, sorry. We were wondering about mental health. We know that more and more students are needing access to that. And I was actually just out of school today where they brought in a school psychologist, like added an additional one because the needs are so great of the kids in that district. And we thought, you know, would there be a way with that 90-minute lunchtime would that be an opportunity for more support for those kids who need that? And would the district be able to make sure those resources were in place? Because it can't just be Dr. Buchan
Right.
running among all the schools trying to meet everybody's needs. It's too much. But knowing that there's a greater need and knowing that research tells us that having those proactive mental health strategies in place prevents school violence, it's a school safety issue as much as anything else. That would be something that would be considered in the mix as well.
Thank you very much.
And we
Some of that?
can just throw in that anytime there's a change in programs, the devil's going to be in the details of how it gets worked out. So the more student involvement and parent involvement that are part of not rubber stamping it, but actually helping determine the structure of it and working with the teachers, the better it'll be, the more successful I think it'll be in the long run. But if it's just something from the outside kind of thrust in, everybody's going to worry that it's going to screw up something, and people won't have ownership of it, and they won't put their all into it. Because we'd like to see the students take advantage of what we see as opportunities of this structure. But if they're cut out of the whole process, they won't. There's a few that will, of course, but then a lot of them will just be like, oh, it's just another thing they're doing. Heck with it. Yeah.
That's a big piece of tonight. I recognize, and this is only my third year, but we need to do a better job of communicating with our community, and we talk about that a lot. And this was an attempt to have 2 sessions with parents to hear. It wasn't the question and answer to go back and forth, and some of the answers we don't have yet. It's great that you have them now. It's developing answers to them, whether that be through more community engagement, student engagement, which has started with several of our student groups, and there's still several student groups to get to. But it was tough. Like, what do you put first? Do you communicate this to parents first? Do you tell some teachers? Do you share with your board? Do you share with the students? So it's like we're trying to kind of do it all at once, but that's obviously not possible. So it's been somewhat strategic in how to plan that.
Good job.
Yes, trying to keep them all in the air. Over here. Thank you guys very much.
Our table was pretty enthusiastic about the idea. I'm going to tell you some of our answers. But what about this idea of executive? We like the idea of more time for collaboration. We came up with a number of ideas of how the collaboration can help services elsewhere. Maybe we could give more time to have a natural time for kids who are dropping out to kind of pursue them, find out what's causing them to drop out, see how we can address that. Study groups, students would have a chance to work together. There'd be more flexibility than in the current study hall system. We thought it would give student athletes an opportunity to get their assignments and stuff. Sometimes when they leave school early, they don't have a chance to talk to their teachers, find out what's going on. For kids who are responsible, we'd be giving them more responsibility. We'd be essentially helping them to mature. Whereas the kids who are less responsible, I think they'd have to have some structure during the 90-minute period to make sure they're not just, yeah. So we thought that initially it would be a big change, and it might be hard on kids who aren't responsible or aren't, able to kind of manage their time very well. We also wondered, we didn't know how the lunch would be working, so we thought, what if everyone wants to eat lunch at the same time? Like everyone shows up at 12 o'clock to go through the cafeteria line. And we weren't clear on where the kids would be spending their 90 minutes. If they would have an assigned place to go or if they could just go anywhere. We also talked about, in terms of what types of services, blah, 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 would you like to see offered? We also talked about maybe offering either more or different foreign languages. And we wondered if students would be allowed to leave during the 90-minute lunch period, the 90-minute period, or during even their lunch period portion of that to go off campus. I forget some stuff. In general, though, we thought, I kind of calculated in my mind, how this worked out, and I think that it's actually redeeming time that's used, if I understand correctly, the time at the end of a class, and then the 3 minutes they have to get to the next class, and the 5 minutes at the beginning of the class. So that's a total of, 10 or 15 minutes per 2 class period, that there is just wasted time right now. And that's where the 90 minutes is coming from. And I thought that was good. It's not like they're stealing the time from actual instruction time. So, but, yeah, so.
Any other feedback?
I don't see a problem here of teachers not getting students not getting as much teacher time or teaching. First of all, they're going to have twice the time when they do meet. But, and secondly, I don't think that this is a scenario where any teacher's going to teach 80 minutes, standing in front of the classroom, spewing forth. My picture of this is that there will be certainly that direct instruction, then there will be time, instead of doing homework at night and bringing it back, to do some homework right there, and then the teachers can monitor the progress with that homework, and then have time to maybe even do interventions if they notice, an issue, rather than now, teaching for whatever time. The student goes home, does homework, comes back. And there's really not even enough time for the student to ask a lot of questions with the current model. So we just overall thought the opportunities for growth and learning for our students are unlimited.
So Steve would ask me how long the class was. I said about an hour. I was wrong. So many of the questions, the concerns, I welcome follow-up phone calls if you'd like. My number's online and my email address if you'd like to communicate more with me about it. I welcome those conversations. Somebody asked me, was this just done? In our research, I've looked at some places to do this a lot faster, and as much as I am okay with that on some things, I recognize when you involve this many people, it's not okay. You need to have a lot of communication, a lot of engagement, a lot of planning, preparation, professional development. You don't just implement something like this. But also recognize that things like this can come to a stop. We come across something that logistically, it doesn't work. We come across some research that says this is really bad for kids. It's not going to work. I can tell you as a father, I have a 10-year-old little girl, I would love for her to be in a system that offered opportunities like this. And I do take every angle and every decision we make here from as much as I'm the assistant superintendent and have to make a variety of decisions on a daily basis, I try to do them all through the lens of being a dad. Because if it wasn't good for my daughter, it's not good for a single child here at Grove City. And I stand by that. So I welcome opportunities for you to contact me and engage with me. I never turn any of those down. I enjoy them, whether it be at a game or an event or in my office, or we go around. I would like to do that. Please leave everything on the table. We will clean everything up. Any of your notes, your big piece of paper, your markers, we'll take care of all that to reset for 7 o'clock. I'm looking forward to our 7 o'clock to engage with some more parents. And trust me, when I tell you there will be another invite coming out, probably November, early December, to have another engagement session. It'll be a little more presentation in terms of answering these questions. We have several staff members who have taught systems like this at other places. I'd like to get them involved. They want to be involved because they love a system like this. So I think there's still a lot more to come in terms of community and parent engagement. So thank you all so much for coming, and we'll see you the next time.